Hey, man, I really appreciate you calling in tonight. I know you're on the road right now, so no, it's you're kind of busy time right now.
Yeah, I'm headed to the Potomac River to fish a Costa Series event.
Oh man, so yeah, you're going to hit into some good water there. I bet that's probably going to be a good event. I'm just curious how the bite's going to be with all this heat coming in. If it's going to make it really tough.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been on the river in 2 years. I don't know. I've never fished it this late in the year. I've always been there in June, so it's definitely going to be an interesting tournament. I figure it's probably going to be pretty tough. So looking forward to getting out there and seeing what we can find.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to congratulate you on your win, um, your first cup win. So that's even better right there. But big congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about how how that's changed for you so far. I'm sure you're probably even busier now than you ever was with like things like this, media stuff and all that. How much has it changed so far in your life?
It really hasn't changed much at all. Definitely a lot more phone calls. Have spent a lot more time on the phone since I won the cup, but that's to be expected. I was prepared for it. Try to set time away every day to handle all the media opportunities and still have time to spend with my family and all that way. I'm not being a burden to them. And that was my biggest concern is I didn't want to be away from my family any more than I had to. So it's worked out good.
Yeah, yeah. I know that's like I say, you've already you've established a great career so far in the bass fishing world. So I know that you're already kind of used to the whole media thing and balancing your life and all that. So like I say, it's you was already set for that.
I guess kind of I was prepared for it.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about practice and how that went for you. Because I mean, just watching the tournament and watching the weigh in, it was a lot of small fish, a lot of spots, and it seems like you found that magic spot where you was able to get them a little bit bigger bags coming in. So kind of talk a little bit about how practice was for you. Did you catch much, or did you just kind of get some bites and leave it? I mean, how'd you do that?
Practice was, I mean, it was kind of what you would expect in August. I mean, it's hard to get a bite. You never really know when your next bite's going to come. But that's something I grew up doing here in North Carolina. The lakes we fish in the summertime are kind of the same way. They reminded me a lot of Lake Hamilton, where there's possibly 7 or 8 different patterns going on, and neither one really outshines the other. So you've got to sample a little bit of all of them every day of the event, and that's kind of the way I attacked Hamilton from practice throughout the last day of the tournament was just running a little bit of everything Hamilton had to offer and throwing 10 or 15 different baits. And, throughout the event, I think I caught a fish on probably 10 or 15 different baits in the tournament.
True. Yeah. So I mean, when it come to breaking that lake down, did you kind of already know what area you wanted to focus on, or did you do a lot of running up and around that lake?
Oh, I run all the way around the lake every single day of practice. I mean, it's a fairly small lake as far as, tournament wise goes. I mean, it's just a little over 7,000 acres, which I kind of enjoyed that because you can fish the whole lake every day. It's not like you're committed to one area or not. So if you start out on the lower end of Hamilton and by 10 o'clock it's not working, you can 15 minutes you can be all the way up the river, change your whole game plan. So
Yeah.
that's why one thing I really liked about Hamilton is you could pull the plug on something that was unproductive and go do something totally different and not have to spend 40 minutes running.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now that lake, how does that normally fish? I don't know if you fished it much other than some of the tournaments, but just kind of looking into history, how does that lake normally fish? Is it normally fish as a tough lake, or is there months where it's just like massive bags that are brought out of that lake?
I have no idea. I mean, the first time I'd ever seen Lake Hamilton was the first day of practice, and I really don't know the history on Lake Hamilton. I mean, the only history I know on it is when George Cochran won the Cup there back in 2005 or whatever. And it was really low weights then, but it was actually a lot better this year.
Gotcha. Wow, that's you always see those tournaments where like the spotted bass lakes. It's always tough when it comes to weight wise. It's so many. Not unless you get it kind of on those Coosa River chain lakes, and where it's big spots in there. But it always seems like them lakes that are loaded with spotted bass. It always seems like they're tough events this time of the year. But kind of going into day one, I mean, before we got into that, did you already know kind of like what kind of area or what kind of fish that you had before you even got into day one, or is it just kind of like, let's just see what happens?
Yeah, it was more of a let's see what happens. I mean, I spent a lot of time in practice looking at stuff and just making mental notes of like points on a seawall or certain deeper stretches of bank and where brush piles were that I never really fished. And then I knew I would just fish it during the tournament because that's a lot of what I do back home in the summertime is just run and fish little specific spots, maybe one little cove or one little point on a seawall or one undercut bank, and just run all of that to just those high percentage areas. I mean, stuff there's no sense in throwing on in practice because if there's one in the area, that's probably where he is. So why would you want to catch him in practice type deal?
Yeah.
So you just make a mental note of 50 or 60 places like that, and run them all during the tournament and see what happens.
That's right. So kind of going into day one, when you blasted off, you hear some of these guys like Gerald Swin and all them talk about sometimes when they blast off, they're just like, I don't even know which way I'm going to go. You know what I mean? I'm just going to pull it out and go. But, I mean, when you blasted off, did you have the exact spot? Like, I know I'm going to start here. And what was it that made you start right there in that spot?
The first day of the event, I never made a cast on anything I even fished in practice for the first 2 hours. I just went through top water around the bank, and I caught a decent limit doing that. And I pulled out on some brush I'd marked and called a few times. And, that was pretty much how the whole event went,
Yeah. So when you come in with your day one weight, did you think it was going to be did you think that you had as good as a day as you thought that you had, or did you kind of like, man, I don't think I did that great today? You know what I mean? I mean, what was your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, my thoughts were I'm going to be up there pretty high. I mean, I knew I had close to 15. I was thinking more around the 14 and a half range. And, anywhere in the South in August, that's a pretty good start. I mean, you're at least still going to be in the hunt with that. And, I actually quit fishing stuff probably about an hour before weigh-in the first day because I didn't want to, take a risk catching anything that I might need for the rest of the event. So, yeah, I had an idea that I was going to be close. I mean, when we started after practice, I was thinking, 12 and a half, 13 pounds a day is going to have a real good chance to win. So once I got over that 14-pound mark, I was pretty much in practice mode after that.
Yeah. So going into like your second day of the event, a lot of the stuff that you were, did you go back? Did you have any spots that you could keep returning to and catching more fish, like making milk runs, or like say you just kept covering? Because I know how you are, just covering you, watching you on FLW. You always fishing new stuff. So I mean, like say, I know you said that earlier, but was there any spots that you could come back to and catch some more fish?
Yeah, I had one area that had a lot of shad in it. There were some random fish schooling in it here and there, and that was kind of my home for the week. Like if I was struggling and I needed to get a bite, I would go in there and spend an hour or two, and usually I would catch 2 or 3, and that was kind of the only home I had for the week, was that one little area.
Yeah. Now it looked like it was pretty on the last day there. It looked like it was pretty intense with how the weigh-in was going, and and I'm just watching some of them. They're like, you only need 5 pounds to knock them out the lead. And the next one's you only need 4 pounds to knock them out the lead. And then you come in with I think you only needed 5 or 6 pounds to knock a guy out, and you had 10 pounds. I mean, walking into it, did you already say, man, I got this one when you were coming up on stage?
Yeah, as soon as Kyle weighed in, I knew I had it won because when he weighed in those 7 pounds, or I think he had almost 8 pounds, I knew I had just a little bit over 10, and I had like a pound and a half lead on him. So I knew as soon as he got done weighing in, it was over.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Just to see you get your first FLW Cup win, and in a sport that you've been in for so long. What is your plans? I mean, do you still have a long-term plan to stay in FLW, or has you ever thought about trying to fish outside of that? I mean, what is your plans on that in the future?
I really don't know. I mean, I'm going to stick with FLW as long as I can. They're a great organization, and I mean, they're one of the main reasons I'm a professional angler. I mean, with the programs they have from the BFL all the way up through the Costa Series, and now with the high school and the college fishing, I mean, it's a great platform for all anglers, for somebody that aspires to be a professional angler. I mean, they've got you covered from the ground up. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say never, but my number one goal is to be able to make a living fishing. I want to retire bass fishing, and whatever I have to do to hopefully make that a reality is what I'm going to do.
Well, I think you've already done that. I mean, you're probably one of the best fishermen out there on the planet right now. When putting everybody in the hat with the KVDs, you, David Dudley, all them guys. I mean, and what did they? I think they said on FLW, how many consistent tournaments have you weighed in a limit? It was like 57 or something like that you weighed a limit in consistently.
Well, I think it was. I want to say it was 71, maybe 72. I think was where.
Goodness.
It was.
Yeah, I mean that's just crazy, man. I mean you don't hear many of that. You don't hear much of that in any platform. And that's hard to do, especially in the many different lakes that y'all fish and the different conditions y'all fish, to be able to bring a limit in every event like that. So let's talk a little bit about your baits before we get too far away from it. And James, do you want to take that over and talk about all the baits that you used for the cup?
Yeah. Would you go into the baits that you used to get your win?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there were probably 10 or 15 different baits I used that I caught fish on in the cup, and it's hard to talk about all of them just because it takes
Yeah.
But
just your
like
main
the first morning, I caught them on a buzz bait and a Demiki D-Pop, which is a Pop-R type bait, is a D-Pop 70. And then I caught some on a monster worm and brush. I caught some on a Demiki 3/8 ounce underspin with a 4-inch Demiki armor shad, just winding it over top of brush. And then I caught some on a crankbait, a couple different, probably 4 or 5 different crankbaits. I caught some on a walking bait, caught a couple on a frog, some on a drop shot, and some on a single 4-inch Demiki armor shad swim bait.
Yeah, so it was like a junk fishing fest out there. For sure.
I'm sorry?
It was like junk fishing fest out there for sure, huh?
Right, yeah, and to me, that's what I like about summertime fishing, because like I said earlier, there's like 8 or 9 different patterns going on, and neither of the patterns really outshine another. I mean, it's something you've got to do every day, and that's one reason I like summer fishing. I mean, it's junk fishing, but it's like precision junk fishing.
Yeah. Like going back to what you said earlier when you pulled out from the ramp the first day and you just pretty much just went fishing. What makes you, what were you looking for specifically in those spots that you pulled up on?
I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I was just covering water, throwing top water, trying to capitalize on, a early shallow bite, because we've got 4 days of practice on a 7,000-acre lake, so pretty much there's been a boat down to every single inch of shoreline of the lake by the time the event starts.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the Cup is we have an off-limits day the day before the tournament starts. So the lake essentially gets a day of rest. I mean, those fish aren't bombarded with people out there fishing, so they kind of calm down. They get back up there and set up like they were before practice started, and you can just, I just go run the bank blind and just hoping to get lucky and catch a couple good ones up shallow that have set up, during that off limits day
I
before they
got
can
you.
get picked off. Just try to run as many sweet spots as I can before my competition, so I get first shot at it.
I understand.
The low hanging fruit pattern.
I hear you. I hear you. Josh, did you have
Yeah,
anything else that you wanted to add?
when it comes to summertime fishing, because this is kind of, we always do like an in-depth segment, and but when it comes to summertime fishing, would you much rather be up there shallow, like say throwing a frog, or do you, or is it, I know you're starting early in the morning, that's always something you start with, top water, but do you try to stay with that all day, or do you try to maybe pull off and start trying to find some deep water stuff?
I bounce around and do it all. I mean, like I said, I started shallow, and then if there's a brush pile close to where I'm at, I may run out and make 5 or 6 casts in it, and go back shallow for 15 or 20 minutes. Just kind of bounce back and forth because there's a lot of fish in the summer that stay shallow, and there's a lot that go out deep. And I feel like it's better if you can merge both of those together as far as getting a number of bites and catching a bigger bag versus just picking one and running it all day.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I always struggle with, and is when to make that move. When you're up there and you kind of like, because certain bites, like a frog bite, sometimes you're just looking for 5 big bites. When do you
Yeah.
know, like, hey, I know it's just instinct for you guys, but like, say you're up there and you ain't got a bite. What do you say, about 35, 40 minutes, and then you go look for something deep, or when do you know it's that time to try it?
Um, it kind of, you just have to go by feel. I mean, I would probably give it an hour, hour and a half, but during that hour and a half, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between deep and shallow. And if I get on a brush pile and catch one, I'm going to run brush for probably the next 20 or 30 minutes, and likewise with the top water, if I pull in a pocket and catch one real quick, I'm going to run 2 or 3 pockets right there in that same area to see if there's just something about that area that those shallow fish want to be up shallow in that particular stretch of the lake versus being out deeper. So it's something you just got to play by ear and just go by feel and see. Just listen to the bites you get and let them tell you what you need to be doing. But my general rule of thumb in summertime is, 10 or 15 minutes in an area, and you crank up and go somewhere else because pretty quick. I mean, you're not summertime fish is hard to beg them to bite. You just got to force them to bite. So I'll run in somewhere, buzz down the bank, run somewhere else, make a couple casts in brush pile, and just try to hit those active fish that are ready to feed. Because I think in the summertime fish will kind of soil up and just go in negative feeding modes where they just won't feed. And I don't think there's a way you can force them to feed. So the more water you cover, the more likely you are to put a bait in front of 5 fish that are actually feeding.
Yeah. Now, when you move, I know you're talking about brush piles, but let's say when you're out there, you're scanning a new lake and you're looking for some deep brush piles. What are some things that I know we all got the structure scanned and all the technology, but is there something that you look for to say, hey, I'm going to go over here and see if there's a brush pile here? I mean, do you go look off your points, all that? I mean, what is some things that you look for to see if there is a brush pile?
I mean, the biggest tool is, that Lake Master chip in my Humminbird. I mean, that shows you all the contours. You can see, the little subtle points and then the major prominent points. But, one thing I like to do in the summer is look on the side of points because everybody puts a brush pile on the very tip of a point. But a lot of times those bigger fish will be set up on brush that are, maybe 40 or 50 feet down the side of the point, not right out on the tip of it. They get away from the place that's getting all the pressure. So they may get out on another little secondary brush pile that's down the side of the point or something like that instead of right out on the tip of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some good information because you know,
Yeah.
that's just something like when you pull up on a new lake. That's something I've always wondered. I hear about people finding brush piles, and I know, you know, majority of the time people put them on points and stuff like that. But I was just curious if there's other things that you guys looked for. Is like, it's got to be something on that, you know.
Yeah.
But Russell Nixon has got a question for you. He wanted to know how you would break down a lake like Lake Oneida this time of the year.
Oh Lord, I've never been there. um, I don't. I mean, I really don't have a clue. I mean, I would definitely run around and sample a little bit of everything it has to offer. I mean, I imagine it's smallmouth and largemouth, so and it's up north, so there's got to be grass. I would definitely have to start in something grass related, just because late August. I mean, the grass is going to put more oxygen, more bait fish going to be in the area, and your grass fish should be the easiest fish to catch. So
Yeah,
I would probably start there, and then I think schooling fish are a big deal on Oneida, or used to be. I'd ride around and look for some schoolers. And that would probably be my my main two things I would start doing.
yeah. Before we let you go, I got two more questions for you, and then we'll let you get going. First question is, what lakes would you like to see come onto the FLW tour? Like, is there any lakes out there that you're like, man, I really wish we would just go here and fish this one time and try it?
Um, I don't really have a preference where we go. The only thing I don't like is rivers. So as long as we're not going to seven rivers, I'm good with it. I like a more traditional, lake, but I love going places I've never been, and that's one of my favorite things to do. And this year we got to go to Cherokee. I'd never been there, and we got to go to Hamilton for the Cup. I'd never been there, so that was fun.
Yeah. And then I got one more question for you. We ask all the pros between FLW Elite and Bass Pro Tour guys, is since this new tournament format started up as a tour level series now, what is your thoughts on how the fishing industry is now? Do you think it's going to make it better, or do you think it could possibly hurt in the long run, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't see how it could hurt. I mean, I look at it from a fan standpoint. I mean, I love to fish, and I love reading about fishing and just following everything. So the way I look at it, I mean, there's just more information out there now for me to gather and pay attention to. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and that's we've seen so much with the people. They talk, which they don't always have. Like when I was in North Carolina, it was a slugfest down there, which we all kind of figured that's how it was going to be, especially the time of year they went. But a lot of people complain about the Dink Fest, but I think it makes it more. Me and James talked about it last show how it's more real. It's more. That's what it is, and
Yeah,
I can relate to it more.
yeah. I mean, it's just a totally different format. I mean, I feel like I would definitely have to change the way I practice and the way I fish for that format. But it would be something you would learn to do. I mean,
Yeah.
it might be some growing pains, but it's definitely something you could learn how to do, I believe.
And you see that a lot with some of the guys that did really well in elites and FLW that went over to fish it. That I guess they fish for 5 big bites. That's what you do. But now that you got to catch as many fish as you possibly can, you see some of them guys struggling. Towards the end of the year, it looks like they're starting to pick up steam. But you've seen someone
Yeah, and
struggling.
I think that's a process of learning how to practice for that style of an event. Like that's a whole different practice strategy to me.
Yeah.
Is what I
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah, that's what I would think, because now you're just trying to look for a bite. It doesn't really matter. I mean, size still matters, but you're just mainly looking for a consistent bite.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you're looking for the strongest pattern that's going to get you the most bites.
yep, exactly right. Well, James, you got it. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I know you're driving. James, you got any more questions for Bryan tonight?
No, I don't. I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. And I do have one more. Are y'all going to be doing a follow up show too as well? Have y'all done a follow up show yet? On I know y'all do your own podcast as well. You and Matt Airy.
Yeah, on our Let's Talk Fish page, we are going to do one, but it's going to be not this week, but next week, because I'm headed to Potomac River this week, and Matt's up at Cayuga for an Elite Series event this week, and we'll both be home the next. So
Yeah.
not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday we'll have a follow up on my Cup tournament, and Matt had a great finish up at Thousand Islands, and however he does at Cayuga,
Yeah.
and we'll kind of recap all of them in one show. Should be a good show.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good. And that show's come a long ways. I like listening to that when I'm at work as well. So a lot of great information, a lot of great guests, and looking forward to that. So guys, next week, was it next Tuesday or 2 Tuesdays away? Make sure you check it out.
It'll be not this coming Tuesday, but next at 7 p.m. Eastern. Just go to Let's Talk Fish Facebook page, and we'll have some fun.
That's right. Well, Bryan, I really appreciate it, man. Drive safe, and congratulations again, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Bye.